hear the president's take on the State of the Union, but we also heard the Republicans' take on it when Indiana Governor Mitch Daniels gave the official Republican response. We also heard Mr. 999 himself, Herman Cain, who had the official Tea Party response. And yes, Cain did look right at the camera. However, less unexpected was the response from the Occupy movement from Washington, D.C. In their response, the movement said, quote, "Financially, the state of the 99% is not strong. That is an understatement. Never in our lifetimes have so many hardworking Americans faced so many difficulties, so many uncertainties, so many indignities." It has been a very tumultuous year for the Occupy movement, and even more so for the reporters and journalists who have covered the movement and its principles. Throughout 2011, reporters covering the movement were beaten, arrested, and ultimately prevented from reporting on police actions against Occupy protesters. We all remember Mayor Michael Bloomberg's midnight raid on Zuccotti Park, in which more than 200 peaceful protesters, including dozens of journalists, were arrested by police in riot gear. And as a result, our nation's press freedoms have suffered a setback. We like to think of ourselves as the most free nation in the world when it comes to the press, but in reality, we're not even close. Joining us to discuss more about the treatment of journalists in the United States today is Delphine Halgan, the D.C. Bureau Chief for Reporters Without Borders. Delphine, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. You just released your Press Freedom Index for 2011. Where is the United States at? How have we changed from previous years, and why?
So the U.S. fell 27 places this year. So
in 1 year?
Yeah.
27 nations intervened between us?
Yes. So now the U.S. in our world index are at the 47th position.
47?
Yeah, it's not.
There's only 34 countries in the OECD, the richest nations in the world.
Yeah, but in our index we have mostly 180.
Yeah, there's 180.
So and at the bottom of the list we have North Korea, Burma.
Sure.
But why this big change?
Right.
As you mentioned, of course, because of the large number of journalists who were arrested when they were covering the Occupy movement. Right. So as you said, dozens were arrested, sometimes even exposed to police brutality, and sometimes even charged. And so we think that it's good maybe just to remember that the freedom of expression and freedom of information is guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution, and that we don't have to forget it. But why this big change? So as I say, it's mostly because of all these arrests around the Occupy movements, but also because all concerned were not addressed yet, like the protection of sources.
Right.
And
we used to have whistleblower laws here in the United States. We no longer do.
Yeah, there's no federal shield law in the U.S. who could allow journalists to protect their sources. And when
Are there in most developed countries?
Actually, yes. And when I'm not talking like in theory, I'm thinking like on a specific case, like the New York Times reporter James Risen, yeah, who is asked now to testify about his confidential sources. So we are talking about like real case happening in the U.S.
Yeah, is part of this, does this have to do in any way, I mean this change in ranking, with the fact that the word press is blurring in the internet age? Increasingly, if somebody gets 5 or 10 articles published on the Huffington Post, suddenly they're a reporter, or they can be designated as such, as opposed to it used to be, only a journalism school graduate was a real reporter kind of thing. Does that have anything to do with this?
It has a direct link, you're right, because Reporters Without Borders, we are defending journalists worldwide, but we are also defending freedom of information, which means that we will defend citizens who can be put in jail because they publish something on Facebook. Right. So and in the US, thanks God, this kind of thing doesn't happen, but we are also like following cases of people who could be in trouble if they publish an information.
Right. So the concept of a citizen journalist is something that you're respecting, and frankly the world seems to be.
Yes, we think that we have to defend citizens if they are in trouble if they publish some information. So,
Yeah.
and we have to defend them as if they were real journalists.
When the police were making their arrests in the Occupy movement, should they have I mean, there were some reporters who had actual credentials. Should they have simply said, okay, you're a reporter, we're not going to arrest you? Is that what you're suggesting?
So it's right that a credential or professional journalists who are working for a well-known newspapers or radio or TV has to be able to do their work. But citizens who want to cover the Occupy movement has the same right and the same freedom of expression. Right.
Delphine, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
And for the great work that you're doing.
Thank you.